Time. Time. We were talking about time, weren't we? And once you start thinking about time, well, you can start coming up with all sorts of funny ideas. The old conception of time, which we're all familiar with, is that time is some linear arrow passing from the past to the future, and we're carried along with it in its flow. If you look further back to ancient traditions, you'll find that most cultures tended to have a sort of cyclical view of time, based upon the turn of the seasons. It was a spiral which advanced as it turned, and kept returning to the same points, which were recognisable, and yet which had moved on. And of course we wonder about the effects of time on ourselves, the fact that we grow older. Or do we? Does time pass? Because if Einstein's theories are right, and time is a dimension similar to space, then time doesn't actually move or go anywhere. It's simply a matrix against which our movements are measured. Time itself does not pass. It already exists in totality. And as part of the space-time continuum, the entirety of the universe must exist completely in every moment from its beginning to its end, if it begins and ends. And that's a strange idea to begin to deal with. That time doesn't actually pass, but we pass through it. Time is simply a measure of our passage through that dimension. Now, some theorists, of course, have come up with the many worlds interpretation when they discuss whether we have free will, whether we can alter the events of our lives by the decisions we make, whether we can shape the future, or whether it's predestined. Well, if time already exists in its totality, then the future must be fixed, because we are moving through it. It itself is not changing. According to the many worlds model, every time we make a decision, reality splits. It diverges into several different time streams, several different universes in which each possible decision was made, so they each diverge in their own ways. And of course, with multiplicities of divisions, this becomes a very complex scheme as universes keep splitting. But the bubble universe that we are in that case, is the one which has followed our decisions to date. It will split again with the next decision we make. I don't like this model. It makes absolutely no sense. That in itself it has no bearing upon whether it's true or not, but it does not have the flavour of being true. It does not feel right. And yet to deny a system of that sort is to deny free will. Yet everything within us insists that we are conscious beings who make our own decisions. Many of us now, of course, realise that this is not truly the case. Most of our decisions can be predicted with near certainty, because we respond to ingrained patterns of behaviour, some of which we have learned, others of which have been programmed into us by society, upbringing, education and so on. We are predisposed towards certain decisions. But there is still latitude for free choice in certain situations, even if we take the most deterministic view of human decision making. So where does that latitude come into play in a universe where the time does not pass, we pass through it, so time must therefore be predetermined? I wrestled with this for a long time, and I really did. Big questions like this fascinate me. And then I found a wonderful passage in a book by Colin Wilson called Mysteries. I haven't been able to find the passage again for this video because Mysteries, if you know it, is a very, very thick book. But in a nutshell, he suggested that our passage through time can be likened to a journey in a car. It's a very basic example, but it will suffice. If I want to get in my car now and I have a meeting in an hour's time in the island's capital of Douglas, and I drive from my home to Douglas, I can actually go more than one way to get there. I could turn left and take the coastal road, or I could turn right and go over the mountain road. If I wanted to be really contrary, I would take a harder right and go all the way round the opposite side of the island and come into Douglas from the other side. And I can make that choice. Now, the most likely choice would be I turn left, but I am not fixed on making that choice. The other choices exist. And the other roads exist. They're there for me to use if I want to. What if time is like that? What if the space-time continuum, the entirety of the universe, is all mapped out, with every possible branch existing already? And what we do as we live our lives, our consciousnesses are almost taking a fairground ride, a roller coaster ride in this universe. We enter in and we follow the path, but we can choose our course. But all of those courses already exist. We choose the one to steer down. That path is predetermined. It leads to a certain place where it will split again. But the path exists, and we choose which of various paths to follow. So time then, if we were to view a map of the dimension, is not seen as a straight line from start to finish. Time is not a narrow corridor. Superimposed upon the map of space, which itself is different at various points in time, there is this network like a huge tree, which has divergent roots, branches, the trunk splits, going off, splitting, almost infinitely, and encompassing everything that exists, everything that has existed, everything that can exist. And viewed from outside as a complete universe, the thing is complete and whole and perfect and beautiful. And we enter into it in our lives and steer our little course to our little section on our little theme park ride, choosing the routes that we take. But all of those routes are already there. They all exist. And this, to me, is the most perfect picture of the time-space continuum I have been able to discover. It keeps our dignity as sentient, conscious beings, and yet it answers all the questions about the universe itself, which is infinitely vaster and more complex and more wonderful than any of us begin to imagine in our everyday lives. We forget how wonderful the world we live in is. We forget the sheer scope of the cosmos and the span of time. Spans of space and of years that our minds cannot even begin to conceive. There are cosmic events happening out there so vast our minds cannot begin to grasp the scale of them. And this is wonderful. This model raises a few more questions, though, about the nature of space-time and of consciousness. And we'll go on to look at some of those next time. Until then, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy.